Allison Miller, your host at the Happy Camper Live podcast, Raising a Happy Camper. And I'm so excited today, super excited because I've been waiting a long time for this. Today, I have Claudine Mossberg with me from Outdoor Play Connection. Claudine, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
I'm excited too. Like I said, we've been waiting a long time to do this, so I'm really thrilled. And I would love for you to just introduce yourself to our listeners.
Yes, I'm Claudine, and I'm a mom of 3. My kids right now are 12, 10, and 4. And I'm a stay-at-home mom who homeschools her kids. And I created the Outdoor Play Connection because I truly just believe in bringing the outdoors to families. And I know it's not always easy. And to have somebody help you figure out exactly the way it works in your lifestyle is kind of why I'm here. And I just want to share what I've learned over the years and, make that possible for others.
When you say it's not always easy, why do you think it's not always easy? Where are the hurdles?
So I think the hurdles are dependent on the family too. I mean, a lot of times I hear is they can't find time or they're not sure how to get out in different weather. And I think that getting outdoors looks differently for everybody. And how you can do that is not really just a one answer for everybody. So I like to really personalize things to what your lifestyle is. Are you a working parent? Are you a stay-at-home parent? How old are your kids? What does your time frame look like? What is available to you in your area? And how can we make the outdoors easily accessible to you with your current lifestyle?
Yeah, that makes sense. And where do you see the priority? And I don't know, if you're going to say to a family, you really should be spending this much time outdoors, each week, or each day. Just a really bold, because I'm thinking, we did a podcast the other day and we talked about priorities for families and making that like one of your top 3 or 5 priorities. And unless you make it a priority, it won't be a priority.
That's correct.
So I'm hearing the same thing from you. And I'm wondering from a priority standpoint, and what's a healthy amount of time for a family to play outside?
I think getting outside at any amount is definitely healthy. And I find that it can be very overwhelming for families to feel like they have to be outside a lot and they don't have the time. So I like to say, what can you do in the week? And I also like to say, what have you already done that you've enjoyed? And let's do more of it. So that it's not like we have to find more things to do into our schedule. It's what are we already doing and how can we turn that into something outdoors? So when it's, an easy thing to do is to take a meal outside, when it's colder, might not be as easy, but when it's warmer weather, why can you just take your plate, go outside? It's actually easier to clean up with kids when you're eating outside. So I'm a big proponent of that. Or, just taking a walk around the block, or even maybe taking an activity outside that you normally would do inside in the dining room or in the kitchen, just take it outside, find a table and go outside. So these ways you can actually get the benefits of being there just by doing what you already do, but doing it outside. Then you can start incorporating additional time to get outdoors. If you have time on the weekend, going to a museum is great, but maybe go to the museum and then explore something nearby the museum. A lot of times museums will have either a park or a forest or somewhere that you can go and just kind of explore. But also just finding that time to maybe go on a small hike nearby and exploring something new to you. And for some families, it's, maybe once a month you start, and then maybe it starts becoming twice a month and maybe once a week. But I think time outdoors every day is important. Get outside, experience the fresh air, experience the sunshine. If there are clouds outside, you still get the benefits of the sunshine, which is amazing. So you don't need the sun to actually be visible to you to benefit from everything that we get from being outdoors and just soaking it all in.
It made me think of something that I learned a couple of years ago where somebody had suggested that when you wake up in the morning, one of the first things you should do is open your front door and just open it up, step outside. And I was like, that's so genius. It's such
Yeah.
a simple thing to do, but you're just bringing in the, the air, the world, and, it's just a beautiful thing to do. So some people do that when they walk their dog, right? The first thing they do in the morning is they out and they're walking their dog,
Yes.
so they get that thing in the morning. But for those of us whose husbands walk the dog, I don't do it first thing in the morning. I make it a point to open my door and get some, because some days when I'm working, and now that a lot of us are working from home or homeschooling our kids, we don't get that much time to, we just start, like the day just starts, and I'll go through the day and go, I haven't even been outside today. I actually said that last night to my husband. I'm like, I haven't even been outside today. This is crazy. And we made sure that we got outside. So the days go quickly, but that one little thing of opening it, just definitely is a good start.
Yeah. I think this is why I like to incorporate it into your already life. Right. So what you're already doing. So like if you have to walk to your mailbox to get your mail, there's a sense of being intentional about your time outdoors. You can walk to the mailbox, get the mail, and walk back inside and not even realize you were outside. But if you walk to the mailbox slowly, take a moment and look at the sky, look at the clouds, what birds are in your trees, and what do the trees look like right now? There's an intention that you're doing, and you're being present in the outdoors at that moment. That walking and getting your mail, which you do quite frequently, can actually be time outdoors. Or if you're having a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, step outside and sit outside and enjoy that space. It's something you're already doing that you can then incorporate the outdoors in. So you're not actually having to do extra. You're just changing the scenery.
Yeah, that's so brilliant. And I love what you were saying about just eating outdoors, or even taking your cup of coffee and like holding it and stepping outside and having your coffee. Cause we think, oh, it's cold and, you going outside, but there you are with a nice warm cup of tea, or your kids are having a little, hot cocoa, but everybody's still warm because their hands are around it if it's too cold to eat outside. At camp, we have, always eat lunch outside. That's like a big thing at camp. It's like, why should we be sitting in this dining room when everybody can sit on the grass and enjoy their meals? And it's a little messy, but like you said, like nature takes care of that. But there's something more freeing about being able to do that and walk around. And it creates a really nice atmosphere, being able to do that. And I guess that's why everybody loves a picnic, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I think that whole idea of your daily life it makes it so easy, Claudine. Like I've never really thought about it that way. And just incorporating these little things from your daily life and being more present about it. It definitely makes it seem a lot simpler to incorporate things. I'm going to tell you that I did something a couple of weeks ago that I've never done before. I went nature bathing, and I say nature bathing because that's how it's pronounced, I guess, in Scotland.
Okay.
And I had the best time. I felt like my 8-year-old self. It was an incredible experience because, like you said, we don't usually have the intention. And I'm sure, are you familiar with, I assume you're familiar with nature bathing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never heard it pronounced that way. So it's very interesting that you say that that's how it's pronounced.
Well, I say that because we had this professor who took us around, and she was very intentional on how she pronounced it. But we can say bathing because we're both from New York, and that's just fine. So nature bathing. And it was just so it was such an incredible experience because there were things that I used to do as a kid that I was doing as an adult that really got me back in touch with nature. I was very moved by that. And it's the slowness of which we walk through the forest and the touching and the sensory part of it. That was really incredible. So I would love to talk a little bit about that if you're familiar with that.
Well, I would love to just talk about what you just said right there at the end, in how the slowness and the speed that you went through, because when I'm working with groups and our groups with the kids, a lot of what I help parents realize is to be present as an observer. And when you're present as an observer and comparison to being present as a facilitator or a guide, you are watching and following the children, and the children are going to show you a way to experience nature very differently than maybe we would have. So if you're going out on a hike with a few friends, you're probably going to take a pace that's much faster than your 2, 4, 5, 8-year-old. They are, even when they can walk quickly, they're not going to. They're going to be mesmerized by all the things that are around them and stop and look and check it out and lift a rock or walk on the log that's there or cross the puddle in a way that you're going around the puddle. So they bring a different speed and intention to your experience in being outdoors. And this is something that I love talking about because it's absolutely magical when you become the observer with the child and let them show you the forest through their eyes, and it will give you a completely different experience.
Yeah, I can totally see that. My daughter was obsessed with catching frogs, and that was her thing. Even to this day, she loves frogs. So wherever we would go, we would be looking for frogs and lifting up. I don't think frogs would hide. We found newts and salamanders under the rocks, but the frogs would be, under buildings and in, by the water. And so, it's just a completely different experience to allow yourself to be with the kids in that way. Frankly, it's a great lesson just in general. Like what we're talking about is how, to be present with a child, regardless of where they are. But nature is such a great example because you described it so well. When you're with them, they're noticing the clouds and the trees and, just we were looking at how things were moving. So we stopped and it was like, okay, let's just stop and let's just look at everything that's moving around us. And then another stop was, all right, what can we hear? And then another stop was touching and smelling and tasting. I tasted the dirt. She said it wasn't going to kill me. I'm not suggesting that people taste the dirt, but I was like, wow, like that was a whole experience. So I allowed myself to be childlike. I was by myself. I wasn't with the child. So I can see, though, from what you were saying, you take that experience. And as an adult, I enjoyed it. And I'm sure that if we can share that enjoyment with a child along the way, it's going to be even more incredible.
Yeah, it's such a different connection too. And it allows us to connect with our child differently too, because they are the guide, they are the lead. And, child-led learning that way is so wonderful for everyone involved, right? Because you're going to learn so much about what your child's interests are. And it gives you this open door to connect. And when you can connect, then you can share more, right? And they learn so much more when they are embodied into what they're interested in and what their focus is. And then you are invited in, and then you're connected in the same world. And just so much learning can happen in that regard. And it's not just the child that's learning, right? So there are definitely things I have learned over the time where they ask me questions and I'm like, that's amazing. I've never seen that leaf before. I've never seen that plant before. Let's figure it out together. And it just builds this trust and this relationship between you and the children where it's like you're learning together. And I just love this experience. And I absolutely love watching parents who come into my groups where I say, like, let's just follow the kids and see where they go. And every time they guide us to like the most amazing place where we then can play and explore, do our projects and, following that rhythm. And being connected to the rhythm that the children's will naturally have of when do we need to pause and take a break? When do we need to pause and have a snack? When do we need to run? When do we need to walk away from this project and come back to it? All of these things, if you're observing, you can then become so much more knowledgeable as to what the children need in the flow of when they are engaged in learning in this way.
Yeah. And I think for parents to really take on that role can be challenging to be the observer because we're so used to, okay, it's time. All right, we're going to go out and we're going to need to go back because we got to, now do this or pick up this or it's time for dinner. But to give the freedom of that space and time, I think is really important, and to give away that control, which is really, what it is. And I think that word observer is just so key. And
And look, there's a time and a place. Like, kids also need our guidance. We need to be there for them, to show them like, okay, it is time for this to happen now. And, how do you leave the house? Because, that's something we talk about all the time, is like, my kids want to go, but I don't know how to get them out of the house. Like, everybody has those challenges. I think it's important that parents know that you're not the only one having those challenges. And when I bring these groups together, what happens is that the parents, the moms, tend to realize like, oh, that happened to you, that happened to me. And then you don't feel alone anymore. And you realize that like the challenges you have are not just your own. Like, everybody does have challenges. And then it becomes a little bit easier because now you're involved in community. And I absolutely love combining community with the benefits of nature, because I just think it's like this double whammy of like amazingness, because now you're surrounded by other people, you feel supported by other people, you can have all the things you need as an adult, but then also you're surrounded by these kids and nature. And it's just, so many people have said to me, it's true, where I said, look, once you get there, it's going to be worth it. Like, just get there. And when the kids get into that rhythm of like, I understand why I want to get there, because they also realize like they then can explore. It's a different space when you can go to a forest or a place that you can just explore and walk on the trails and not have to have all of these restraints that we might have in other locations, right? I do try to guide people when they are looking for these kind of open play areas to not choose a place that has a playground nearby, and not choose a place that has a lot of rules. Like, those rules are in place for a reason in gardens and parks and stuff. And absolutely, we respect that. But to give children a place where they can go and roam and just be with nature is just really important. I remember as a child doing that in the forest down my block. I have such fine memories of that. And I think children need that. And it's so easy to have it not happen. And I realize more and more how many kids just don't have that experience of like, just go to the forest and explore and lift the log and see all of the things that are growing there and creating there, and going throughout the entire year and seeing the same location in every season, if you have seasons. But even if the seasons aren't drastic, like the nature changes, the plants change, what is different there. And it's really just, that's what I want to help people realize, is that you can experience that and bring that into your children's lives. And I know that in today's day, it's like easy to be busy, and it's like the society is go and do, and that slow down time is just so important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's what we do at summer camp. I mean, summer camp, if kids are fortunate enough, most kids can go to a camp that's typically in a setting in a woods, because that's where camps try to. I mean, you'll have city camps and other types of programs, but, finding an outdoor, that's what people look for during the summer. And so, we do that, but we bring, camp counselors and role models, and there aren't parents typically along the way. And what we get to experience with these kids is incredible. So being able to take the time as a parent to recreate that with your kids is important, for sure. And I think quite magical, because we get, I think after a while of many, many years of summer camp, I've been, running a summer camp itself for 25 years, like you start taking, you sort of take advantage a little bit about where you are,
Right.
and it is important to, not take advantage of any place where you are and really appreciate it, but we do. And I see that when the camp counselors come, because a lot of times we'll hire people from different countries and, different backgrounds, and they've never even been in the woods. So they're like children too. So everybody's walking around going like, oh my gosh, did you see this and this? And there was a deer and there was a rabbit and there was this, and, they can't wait. Watching a sunset becomes, a very meaningful experience every single night. Right. I'm obsessed with sunsets. I'm obsessed with sunrises and sunsets, but
me too.
Right. So just even taking the time to watch the sunset, or noticing where the sun sets each day and how the sun is moving.
How it changes.
Yeah. It's just an amazing thing.
And I think that's great. Like when you're in a camp too, and you're in the same location, you can see how it changes day to day.
Right.
And one of the things that I recommend for the groups that I work with is pick a location and stay there all year. It's fine, go explore other places, but have this location be something you at least go to every month. We have a location we go to a couple times a month, because you get to see how it changes and how nature is basically evolving and moving around you. And like you said, like see the chipmunks and see the animals and just all of those things. And it's absolutely magical. And I want parents to experience this because it's just such an important part of childhood that I think if people aren't aware of it, they will miss out on being that observer and being involved in that with their child, right? And like anybody who's been to a camp, I know, like I didn't go to a summer camp when I was a kid, but we go to a summer camp every year that my husband went to, and he's been going for 40 years. And my kids have been going since they were born. I've been going since I've met him for 25 years. And it's so special to us and to be in that place. So I just love what you're doing and what you're talking about. And that's what I want to help bring to parents, in that you can experience this with your children too.
I was thinking of something when you were talking about going back to the same place each month, and the smells change, like the smell of leaves is a lot different than fresh grass, and just everything, so I think just keeping in mind, like all of the different senses are so important and part of the experience too. Because I was just thinking, as you were saying, like, oh my gosh, but in the fall, it smells like this. And, the other day I was walking outside and I was like, it smells like snow. And it snowed the next, it snowed overnight, but I know the smell of snow.
Smell it.
You can smell it, right? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly what you're talking about.
So it was cool that I woke up the next morning and there was snow. I was like, I knew it. I smelled it. And
also when it does snow and you go out into the forest, or you go out into nature and there has been recent snow, the sound changes, like that peacefulness and that quiet. I love going into a snowy forest. Like we look forward, my kids are like, is it going to snow yet? Is it going to snow yet? Like they just love it. Cause as soon as it snows, we are outside, we're going to check it out and putting the fresh tracks in. And I just love that they enjoy these things, but it's because I've taken the time to make sure we're out in all of these kinds of weather, right? If it's raining, we're out. If after the rain is amazing in the forest, everything is so green, like always. And just like the smells and just all of it. So this is why I talk a lot about all weather play and embracing the weather that's around you and knowing how to interact with it. So on a bright sunny day is going to look differently than, a rainy day, but you can still experience them both.
Yeah. And you sometimes are surprised at how a rainy day can be the most supportive day and come just at that perfect time. And just all the feelings that come in from that as well.
Yes.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So I'm thinking also about art in nature and just that whole connection between, I was working with someone the other day and they painted this beautiful mandala and put it on the ground, and it had collected like twigs and acorns and leaves and everything. And they were like, we're going to build, our own nature mandala. And we just sat there. I did. And I put grass here and I put rocks here. I did this and that. And it was such a beautiful experience for me. And I was just kind of like, just thrown into it. I was like, oh my gosh, and then of course the wind comes and it blows itself away. And, but I had this sort of ability to create in the forest too. And I'm wondering how art comes into play as well.
Yeah, I feel like art is always happening, always, whether we are facilitating it or not. I mean, if you see a child walking through, they will often find a stick, and that stick is drawing in the sand. It is, moving things around. They're bringing leaves together. I feel like art is happening all the time and just manipulating the things around us. And that is one of the things that we do in the groups that I have is we create nature art, and I have all these different projects that we bring, and the children collect the nature that they want to, incorporate into the art project that we're doing. And I just love seeing how this just allows so much creativity of, like as you're walking on our short hike, look for things that interest you, and then that's going to become part of your project. And it's just so fun to see kids. And I work with kids in multiple ages, like our groups now are ages 2 through 12, 2 through 13, of course with the little siblings of 1-year-olds and the carriers too. But it's so fun to see these multi-age groups and how the children just interact differently with the same project. And that's a question I get a lot of times is like, well, what age group is this for? And I'm like, look, you can join as the parent. Like, this is for anybody. Art is for anybody. It's how you interpret it. It's how you interact with it and how you bring it all together. That's different. So that's something that I think, we recently did leaf painting, leaf prints, but we used paint. So it was really interesting to see how, like, a younger child might just take one color and paint, some of the leaf and then print it. And like other kids, older kids are taking rainbows of color and making very specific lines of how they want their leaf print to look and overlapping the leaves. So it really is for everybody, and as an adult, like, you could get involved in that too. And like, how do you want to do your leaf prints? And then showing them how you can then see the description of the leaf on your paper, and the different shapes of the leaves. So I think art is just always happening, and I love it. And it happens naturally. And it also, when we bring in these projects, it just shows every single time how it's different by every child, every age. It's just, everybody can participate, and it just creates such magical things.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, I just think there's so many ways to incorporate nature into what we do from an artistic standpoint, and even a musical standpoint. There's a lot you can do creating music with sticks and rocks and all of that. So we've done some things in the woods where we've created a little rock band.
Yes.
They're kind of fun. And also, yeah, I mean, it's just, we have a lot of things that we have at Happy Camper Live, whether we build shelters or fairy houses, and encourage people to kind of stay and do fun things that are a little bit inspiring, in addition to appreciating the observing, going with the kids. But like, sometimes people want creative ideas, and I know you have a ton of those. We share some too, which is good, because sometimes you want a little inspiration, especially if you're out there a lot, right?
Yes.
It could be like Wednesdays are, our art days, and we get outside and we do some art. So yeah, there's a lot of different areas, subjects, I guess, you can incorporate into your experience outdoor playing, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you can just, we've brought science and engineering and art and math, and I mean, all of it, like everything, you can bring it right out into what you're doing, counting your sticks, counting your acorns, and putting them into clusters and groups, and
Right.
creating, dams or structures to balance an egg, or creating a nest, and understanding why animals have a shelter. So it's just, there's so much you could do. And I think it's important to understand that when, my kids have been doing this over the years, they started when they were very young too, and they've done a lot of these things over and over, but they've experienced it different every time. Right. So the way they might have experienced it at 2 years old, they're experiencing it differently at 10 or 12 years old. And as you grow, you also become more of this leadership that comes involved, where the older children are being kind of mentors to the younger kids. And I just love that it can do that too. Yeah, it's just, there's so much you can do. And I know it can be overwhelming. And that's another reason why I like to help work with parents and help families understand, like, okay, well, let me do some of the work for you, because it's something I can do for you. And then you can just implement it and just be there and be present and enjoy it with your child, because I understand it can be very overwhelming to sit there and Google it or Pinterest it and try to figure out what you're going to do and find the supplies and how. Like, I just want to have some fun with my kids. So that's another thing that I take very seriously, is like, anytime I have a program available, is I try to make it as simple as possible to implement.
Right. And you do training too. Like, if I were a parent that wanted to start a play group and I wasn't in New Jersey, but you could help me facilitate an outdoor play connection and set up groups where I am, right? That's a part of what you do.
Yes,
right?
that's a big component of what I do. Is I don't know, I run the groups too locally, but that's kind of how all this started, is that so many people wanted other groups, and I'm like, I'm one person, I can't run all these groups, I have to homeschool my kids. So I just started showing parents, like, okay, let me just show you what I'm doing. And so I've created a program now where you can learn exactly how to do what I'm doing, and simplify it for you. Like, why don't try to figure it out on your own? I've already figured out like a lot of the problems that you can overcome very easily. So Yeah, that's another thing that I like to do, is just help you figure out, how do I build this community? How do I bring people together? Because I'm telling you, when you do it with other people, it's great to get out as a family and to be outdoors together, but bringing other people in, it just magnifies the benefits that you're going to get. And having that community, not only for your kids, like a play group for your kids, but having that community for yourself as a parent, is just really wonderful too.
Yeah, I was thinking about the hike I was taking while I was forest bobbing. And, it started out, we were like a whole group of strangers, and we met in this woman's house, and I kind of looked around and I didn't know anybody. I actually went with someone, so I knew that one person, but I intentionally didn't stay with them. I walked on my own. And by the end of this experience, I had these amazing conversations with all of these, and there were about 8 or 10 of us in the group. It's amazing conversations with people along the way. And, just that one walk. And frankly, like in the middle of the walk, we were going so far down to this river. I had this fear of like, how the heck am I getting back up? Like, I'm not a hiker. How am I going to do this? And the leader just said, trust nature. Nature, you just need to trust nature, that nature will support you. And I was like, okay. So we get to the bottom at the river, and we're sitting there, and she actually made a tea for everybody, which was really nice. So that's
lovely.
something, I guess, like a family, in a play group, in a group where somebody brings something warm. So at the end, they set it up in this little, circle. It was very, very nice. And we all drank this tea. And I was like, then I started thinking, how am I getting up that hill? How am I getting up that hill? And I was just trust nature, trust nature. So the leader goes, okay, so now you have 2 choices. You can go back up that way, the way we came, or you can come this way, the shortcut. I'm like, right. I trusted nature. And I got back, and got back with all my friends. So that was pretty cool, just to, have this experience. So I can attest to, as an adult, just even a simple walk for an hour, with people who I never met before, and maybe people I'll never see again. But there was, such a connection. And I would say that we did share along the way. And I think that's the, being the observer and being a participant. There were times when she had us collect things, and everybody got to collect their favorite thing and then like show and tell it,
Yes.
And we were a bunch of adults like showing. I made a little bouquet out of like, little things, and I tied it with a piece of grass, and there I am like show and tell. So it was just really sweet. And I can just imagine, a program like you're running that's, organized and well thought out, and, really, can be so engaging and meaningful for families. So I commend you, Claudine, for what you do and sharing it with the world. And I would love for you to tell everybody a little bit more, because I feel like we didn't give them the full picture of Outdoor Play Connection, like exactly what it is that you offer. Where can everybody find you? I would love for you to take some time, and you don't have to go quickly through it because there's a lot that you're doing.
Okay. So anyway, you can find me on Instagram, Outdoor Play Connection. I have a website, outdoorplayconnection.com, and you can basically work with me in a few different ways. So if you're local, you can definitely come to one of my in-person classes. I offer seasonal classes. They're either 8 to 10 weeks long, or I do these pop-ups every month where it's on a Saturday, you can come and do these projects and do these kind of nature walks with your kids. They're 2 hours long. I also offer nature hikes for moms, so you can kind of come and pick my brain of how to get outdoors with your kids live. So that's kind of my in-person stuff. And then I offer my group coaching program, which is going to open up again in the new year in 2023, where I will help coach you basically how to have an outdoor play community for you and your kids. And I will help you figure out all of the logistics and support you through that process so that you are basically secure in having this group meet ongoing. It's something I absolutely love to do. It's how I got started in just basically helping other people get groups going. And then I offer one-on-one coaching, because I've realized, sometimes you just need to figure it out for yourself. And this is a way for me to personalize how you can get outdoors. I've worked with just moms like, hey, my kids get out, but I don't. So I've worked with one-on-one with moms. I've worked with mom and kid teams. So where I just help the mom and the children figure out what it looks like for them and how to make it work for all of them. And I've worked to help just families figure out how it works for their family in getting outdoors, so that the one-on-one coaching kind of really personalizes it to exactly what you need, and to kind of make it work for you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here at Raising a Happy Camper podcast. Certainly, this is one instrumental way to raise a happy camper for sure, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I love what you do, and I'm really happy to be here and just kind of share some of the joy that I've been experiencing, and hopefully inspire some other families and parents to get out and be an observer and enjoy the outdoors with their kids.
You totally inspired me. So I'm
Great.
all in. Yes.
Wonderful.
And I have a college student and he's coming home soon. And I'm just like, we're doing. He actually always wants to go on an adventure. So we're like, he's like, plan something this time, Mom. You're in charge.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So that's really cool. So thank you, Claudine. This was great. I just loved hearing what you do. It's really important what you're
thank you. Yeah, I absolutely love what I do too. I feel like I don't work. I just love what I do. It's just, you always wonder, like, will you ever grow up and love what you do? And I do. And it just brings me so much joy when I meet a mom who says, I wasn't sure about this, and now I get outdoors with my kid all the time. And like, that just brings me so much joy, and to impact families that way. So thank you. And I love being able to share this and just help people realize that they can do it.
Take a moment to shine on Happy Camper Life. We're loving, living, and learning online on Happy Camper